So today for our studio session, one use case that I have personally heard from the game studios that we work with, how we can take assets that are preliminary or rough around the edges, basically just kind of inspiration to guide the generation process and really get something that's a little bit more appealing out of that process, and how we can use the canvas to really get some of the details that might otherwise be missing from that. So I pulled down a couple of screenshots of some Creative Commons open source models that were on Sketchfab, which is a website that people put out 3D assets. I pulled from the kind of free group just so I could kind of like showcase some of these. I will try to attribute each of the creators of these models as we go through and kind of turn these into just character art. So yeah, we'll just go ahead and get started. If you have questions along the way, feel free to drop them in the chat. We will answer those. We got a lot of new faces today, which is cool to see. A lot of familiar faces as well. Welcome to the studio session. The first one that I'll start with is maybe this guy here, and we'll open this up in the gallery just so that we can see it real quick. This is kind of like a blacksmith pulling his hammer up and kind of about to kind of smash it down, right? So we've got the 3D model. It's a little bit it's kind of what you would expect from a video game, where maybe it's like a ARPG and you're kind of further away, and this is kind of like the actual 3D model for the blacksmith. What we're going to try to do is we're going to take this and try to get something that's a little bit more of kind of concept art-y out of that. And this might be something that we would want to use for the character's avatar when they're talking to them and kind of doing the back and forth dialogue. We might use this if we were if we're making like a live ops game and he's like the blacksmith class and you want to like have a character icon for him. If it's a fighter, you might have like the character select screen. There's a whole bunch of places where you can inject these types of assets and really take something that you've kind of already got and repurpose it, specifically the rig and the 3D model, as kind of like a tool to compose the pose and the scene that you wanted to then create for the key art. It's a really cool way of, once you actually have started building the game and have some of those technical art assets, getting back and using that to flesh out some of the in-game assets as well. So we'll take this and we're going to drag it to the canvas. Now, one thing that I'll note here is that our bounding box is set to the default of 1024 by 1024. The screenshot that I took of this is not that size, right? And so one thing that has kind of come up as we've talked to people who are using this specifically for like more of the traditional image to image is, how do you easily get this to the right size for you? If it's a large image, you probably want to shrink it down. If it's a small image, you want to shrink it up. The way to do that is to get your bounding box to the right aspect ratio that you want to generate. It's kind of fortunate here, this is roughly a square, but then you can just right click the raster layer once it's been dragged in. If you've got the raster layer selected, you've got your kind of like quick context menu here, and we'll just hit transform. At the bottom, we've got our transform box that's going to allow us to kind of like apply this. We can kind of do this manually if we want, but we can also just hit fit to bounding box. And the fit to bounding box is just going to automatically scale that to fit inside of the bounding box. And that's an easy way to just kind of like get an image onto the canvas, blow it up to the right size, and then get started. And so that's what we're going to do. So I'll transform that and apply that, and we now have kind of like the right fit for what we're generating. If we go to our layers, this is where I'm going to do something that's a little bit different than an image to image. I'm actually not going to use this as a raster layer. I wanted to throw it on there just to show you how you can get something on the canvas. But what I'm going to do is take this raster layer, and rather than run it as an image to image, I'm going to convert this to a control layer. And the control model that I'm going to use is tile. Now, when we are converting this to the control layer, we want to make sure that we're selecting the right model and using the filter that goes with that. The tile control net actually doesn't require a filter at all. You just use the image. And remember, we've gone over the tile control net in past Studio Sessions, tile control net's kind of like a stamp, if you will. It's really trying to, at full strength, recreate the image as is. And so this is a good way of getting an entirely new image while still kind of like injecting the conditioning or the guidance of your existing image as a tool here. In this case, though, we're not going to want that to be full strength because we're not trying to recreate it exactly. We're trying to kind of just really bias the generation towards something that is in this general kind of color space and structure. So one question come in, fit to bounding box won't keep proportions the same. That is why you resize the bounding box to the right aspect ratio before you fit the bounding box to it. So if you were using maybe a little bit of a strange aspect ratio, it's not kind of like one of the standard ones. What you can do is fit the bounding box to your layers at the full size, lock the aspect ratio, and then hit optimize. That'll bring the bounding box back down, and then you can transform it and fit that in. We're looking at making that a very simple action, similar to how the ruler was used in past versions of Invoke, but it is all possible today. It's really just a way to kind of get started. So we've got the tile here. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this control layer and switch that duplicated version to canny. And I will use the filter for that. And basically, I'm just using the canny to give it a little bit more of kind of a structural constraint since we're loosening the tile weight. Basically, the tile is going to help bias the color and structure, and the canny is just going to make sure that everything fits the original shape and structure of the original. That's kind of what I'm going for here. So I'm just making sure that I don't have that much noise in here. I'm really trying to use this loosely for color. If I've got details that I want to capture, I'm going to kind of tune the thresholds to get more of that in here. But this should capture the rough shape, although I may want to lower this to get a little bit more of these fingers if I can, but that's what's going to happen over here. I think this will work for us. So we'll apply that. So now we have a canny. It is appropriately filtered. We have our tile control net. Now we just need a prompt. I'll do concept art character as our default template. And I will do a blacksmith holding a hammer. Anvil, white beard, leather apron. Is that kind of like an apron? Armor, and blazing hot molten sword. So first time I'll generate this, we'll just see if the prompt works, and then we'll figure out how we want to go from there. But I think this is a decent place to start. I may bring down the end step on our canny and increase the weight. And maybe I'll bring down the tile end step as well. Again, I'm a big fan of like leaving the end a little bit open and free, just so that it kind of has a little bit of like a blur between the purely controlled piece and then giving the AI a little bit of freedom to just add in the details based on the prompt. So I typically pull those down. It'll work if you keep it all the way to the end, but it'll be very strict. And so you'll want to make sure that you've got the right prompt, the right control images, and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to generate this and then kind of go from there. Couple of comments. Can't wait for the Inpainting integration with Flux. You already can Inpaint with Flux. We'll be releasing some more Inpainting improvements for Flux, but you already can. You just don't have the control nets and things like that yet, but you can do Inpainting. And then somebody called out that this might be called a smithing apron, a very specific type of apron. I think we did okay here, so I'll kind of keep it, but you can kind of see what we got. And this, I think, is a pretty good start. Maybe we'll just bring in this as a comparison. Put that to the bounding box. Then we will hide our control layers real quick, and then just kind of, I'll move this to the back, and we'll just kind of do a comparison here. So eyes are a little bit different. Not too different, but a little bit different. But we can see where it came in and kind of added in a lot of the kind of painterly brush strokes and things like that, which is all part of our concept art character prompt. Overall, I think it looks pretty good, but this is where the fun of the control canvas comes in. I want to get more details. I want to get some more of this stuff in here. So I'm going to hide our old control layer. I'm just going to bring that up from time to time as kind of like our reference, so we can compare against the original. And we will turn on our control layer preview here and take a peek around areas that we want to maybe change this. So I'm seeing we don't really have fingers over here on the control, canny control. We might want to add. Maybe that's what I'll do right now. We'll go in and get our brush, white, and down to 1 pixel. And then we'll just go in and draw a little bit. Let's clean this out so we can just kind of imagine with our minds. And we'll draw a little bit of these fingers in. Okay, so we're going to draw. Oops. I think that should work. I maybe got a little bit overzealous on one of those fingers. We'll probably erase that. Just keep that there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and actually do some targeted regeneration. So I'm going to go in to the head, and we're going to kind of focus on this guy's head here. Select our Inpaint mask layer. The Inpaint mask layer is where you're going to get the traditional select a region and just regenerate that. You're going to want to make sure that you have that selected. If you don't see an Inpaint mask layer, if you've deleted it for whatever reason, you can always add one by going up to add layer and Inpaint mask. But by default, when you hit the reset canvas, a completely fresh canvas session has an Inpaint mask added by default. So you should typically see it most of the time unless you've deleted it. So you can always hit reset canvas if you want it back, or you can add it manually. But we're going to select this layer, and I am going to kind of select the region that I want to regenerate. So we've brought the bounding box in. For those of you who are new to Invoke with 5.0 coming out and you're kind of getting back into it, the reason we control the bounding box is we're bringing the focus for the generation down to a smaller region. What Invoke is going to do is it's going to generate that at the big size that the model can handle. It's going to generate that at essentially the full resolution of 1024 by 1024. You can see up in the top left, there's actually a preview that shows you the actual size of pixels as well as the scaled size that we're going to be generating at. So I'm going to go ahead and select this region here. What we're also going to want to do is make sure that our prompt still makes sense. In this case, a blacksmith holding a hammer, anvil, white beard. The anvil piece is not relevant, so I'm going to take those out. White beard, leather apron, armor, blazing hot molten sword. We don't need that. So I'm just going to focus on his face. We can do some other stuff that might help improve the quality, like close-up or portrait of a blacksmith, white beard. We might want to describe his expression, stern face. If we want to, we can also go in, I'll hide the control layers and the Inpainting mask real quick so we can look at this. We can go in and add some of this kind of controlled regional guidance. So I added a regional guidance layer, and I'm going to say gold band ornamentation. And we're going to kind of color this area here with that prompt. Bands on beard. He's got like these golden bands around that mustache, and I want to kind of prompt it to see if I can get it to kind of like really understand what it's looking at and give it a little bit more control. I think other than that, I'm going to leave everything else as is. It seems to be doing okay with this. I'll turn back in-paint masks. I'll turn back control layers. Maybe I actually want to get some of this, like these buckles as well, in this, because I think those details would look nice. And we'll do our denoising strength at maybe 0.55. Because we've got the tile, because we've got the canny, we can actually get away with going up a little bit more, so maybe 0.7. Those controls are really going to help keep it on the rails, even though we're going into kind of dangerous denoising strength territory. So while that's generating, I'll try to get some questions answered. Which model are you using? Custom XL. Yeah, Custom XL is a model that I have just kind of merged and mashed together through a number of different tunes and merges and pokes and prods. I did put that up on Civitai, but that is basically my personal blend of craziness. Do what you will with it. It is version 1 on Civitai because I've done a bunch of different things to my stuff before I ever like shared it. There was a while where it was called like hipster mix, or I don't know, something like that. It was like it went all whole different bunch of places, and it's kind of evolved in all of that time. But you can get that on Civitai. That is not Invoke endorsed. That is just my crazy blend. The regeneration here has given us a lot of good details. If we zoom back out to our full size here, we can see that from our original pass at this to this new generation, it's actually gone in and added a lot of nice little brushwork. His eyes are closed. We've got the kind of like white eyebrows. It looks really good. I like this generation. And so I'm going to delete this in-painting mask. The thing that I wonder about is maybe if our canny is a little bit too high and is causing a little bit of this kind of like fierce, jagged edge on some of this. And I want this to really get loosened up. So I'm going to decrease the weight down to 0.6. And at the beginning and end step, I'm going to bring that down to 60%. And then I'm going to repaint those details as well. And I think that should give us a little bit more of a blended kind of brush look on those. We'll see. So it's regenerating those buckles and kind of giving us another iteration to look at here. So if I compare, I'd say I loosened it up pretty well. This looks good. I think I prefer it. Colors look good. So we will clear that in-painting mask, and then I'm just going to go through and detail out some of these other things. I'll hide the regional guidance. Actually, I'm probably just going to delete this out. I don't intend to go back and do much more on the face. And so I'm going to come over here and focus on this hammer. Now, whenever I'm working on an area of the image that is, we'll say like a little bit more specific, like I'm focusing on one very specific region and it's hard to prompt for the composition. It's like very difficult to explain. Like you're looking at this one area, it's like an image of half the body and he's holding a hammer, but you don't see any face and there's no real like composition or scene. No one would ever paint this picture. That can be difficult without using something like a reference image. And so what I'm going to do here is for this area, I'm going to create a new global reference image that's going to pull this out. And when I'm working on this area, I'm going to keep that there as a composition only IP adapter. What that's going to do is as I'm generating, it's going to be kind of injecting this almost like this image description into the model of this is kind of what the scene looks like. There's this big thing here and there's kind of a hand and all of that kind of stuff. And I think that will help get a little bit more context and help it understand what it's looking at a little bit better. And then I'm going to change some of our prompt here. So we'll say a blacksmith. You don't need white beard, leather apron, armor. Don't need stern face. Holding a hammer. Fist gripping the handle. And this, I am going to do some inpainting here, and we'll inpaint this entire thing in the middle. And I think we'll just give that a shot. Give that a shot. While doing that, somebody said, that's cool that each inpaint is a new masked raster layer. Yes, and you can go in and erase and manipulate and move those around. So there is a lot of like flexibility. Something else you can do is if you like something that's staged, let's say you like 2 different generations that are in your staged canvas and you want to kind of merge them together, you can save one out to your gallery, select the other, and bring the other in to kind of manipulate directly on the canvas. That's a really interesting way to do that. So we are getting a generation here. We compare these two, and I definitely like the new one. It's got a lot more detail on the hammer. The hand is definitely more well formed. At least we've got a better shape there. I'm gonna accept it, or maybe I'm gonna try one that's a little bit lower denoising strength and one that's like super high denoising strength. And the reason I'm gonna do that is I just want to compare and see like how much of this is coming from the tile and how much of this is coming from the initial image that's sitting underneath with the raster layer. When I set the denoising strength higher, I'm actually giving more influence to the control layers, right? The control layers are doing more of the guidance work to get it to this output. And when I bring the denoising strength lower, there's just less of a window for the control layers to really impact and influence the generation. Somebody asked, composition is useful when you want the orientation to change, but leave the actual structure up to chance. I would say more of what I find composition IP adapters useful for is when the layout of the image is hard to describe in words and also atypical. If you are doing a character portrait and the character is sitting right in the middle and they're smiling, that is a standard, pretty common orientation for images. It's just kind of like, hey, this is a character. Characters are always in the middle. They always like pose and stand here. When you're doing something that's a little bit more like strange and unusual for a prompt, so something like this is the only part of the image I'm looking at, it's like, how would I describe this? It's like just a hand. It's kind of like I don't know. It's just very difficult to describe in words. And using the reference image can kind of give it a little bit of that context. So it is using that as its base or reference when it's layering in and adding some of the denoising work. So we've got 3 options here. This one was the lower strength. This was our medium strength, and this one was our high strength. And we can see that with the high strength, it gets a little bit more away from some of the colors that were there. It starts adding in, like it even adds in some strange pinks over here. So I don't know that I love that. When it's a little bit lower, we don't get as much of the new brush strokes in. So I think it was right. Our original 0.7-ish was kind of like right on the money. We like that. So we'll accept that and then take a look and see if we want to change anything else. Maybe we'll work on this hand a little bit more. And we'll do one thing that you can do if you're kind of moving this around, you can pull the bounding box into the reference image. So because I changed the reference image area and I want to kind of like pull where my bounding box is, you can hit this button and that'll just kind of remap it to the current working area. Very useful if you're using the reference images kind of like follow along and take the context or composition into account. I may bring this down a little bit from a composition perspective just to give it a little bit of looseness there. We'll go back to Inpainting mask, and I'm going to try to get this hand here. I may add a regional guidance in for hand and just kind of put that in. Give that some scoped attention. And then this might confuse it. Just see. Is it possible to create a character design in anime style? Yes. You can use an anime model and then do exactly what we're doing here, but prompt for anime, and that will kind of create a more anime-ish look. So yeah, just a matter of using the right model and using the right prompt or prompt template if you've set up your prompt templates. You can also use LoRa's as well for that. You don't want to change the base model itself. That's a good way to do it. Do we like that, or do we like our original? Definitely added more texture, but I think we lost some of the definition. So let me try bringing up the canny, because that has like our fingers in it. And bring that up on the end step as well, just basically influencing the generation a little bit more with that firm line from the canny. And that'll go in and add that in. One thing you will notice is if you start adding reference images and controls and regional guidance, all of those things together increase the amount of VRAM that you're using. So just recognize that it's got to like load all of that in. You've got a larger card, more of this will kind of be, you know, a little bit more seamless. Added some of the structure in, but the colors got a little bit off. So now I need to ask myself, what do I want to do here? I'm going to decline to merge that in. And I'm going to check something out real quick. I'm going to take off all these layers and maybe see if we need to go in and update. I see this kind of like line here that's coming in, and I wonder if that's kind of confusing it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw in a little bit of color guidance as well with the base image. And maybe this will help it understand these fingers a little bit better. We'll try to add in a little bit of a black line between these as well. Let's turn our control layers on so we kind of see where this is going to map to. I'll bring this down from an opacity point of view just to kind of like blend that in a little bit more, but I'm going to kind of like draw over these lines that I've given myself. And we'll turn back on our other controls here and then give this an invoke. So really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to set it up for success. I'm giving it a little bit of support here because it was struggling to kind of figure out what is what. So by drawing the shape and using the highlights and kind of the colors that I'm expecting to see, I'm going to be able to influence that a little bit more. The next piece that we'll be looking at here, if I'm not getting what I want, is I'm going to be decreasing the tile. Because that could be conflating, because I see this line came back even though that's not in the control canny or my kind of initial sketch. So if we take a look at this, I'll disable the transparency effect and turn off our regional guidance and other layers. Where's this? Oh, I hit my control layers. Don't want to do that. So this is coming from that tile. The tile is actually, you can kind of see it's stamping that little rectangle onto the hand. That's coming from the tile control net. So we have a couple of options. The one that I'm going to do is I'm just going to disable that control net. I'll turn transparency back on. I'm going to disable the tile for this purpose. I don't need it. I'm not using the tile anymore for this context. I really want to kind of just use my image to image. And so we'll do that, and I'll regenerate using just the canny control net to guide this and the underlying color. So there's definitely kind of like a keep an eye on the controls if you're not getting what you want, because there might be something in the controls that's sneaking in and kind of changing the structure here. Now we maybe need a little bit more or a little bit lower denoising strength because we've taken out that tile control. So I brought that down to 0.5. 0.7 was too much, even with the canny. 0.5 might be closer to what we want here. Okay, hands look good, or better. Does anyone see the sneaky thing that came in, though? It looks a little bit weird. There's like a finger that came over here in the background. What the heck? What the heck? Come on. We don't want that, right? Okay, but I do like the hand. I like what it's done, and I think that it's salvageable. So I'm going to accept this. And this kind of comes back to the benefits of having the masked raster layer added in. If I want to, I can come in, select that raster layer, and I can now erase out the areas that I don't think helped us. I don't think it eats this finger either. So now I've got that back, and I've got this kind of glove that's starting to form and becoming more usable for me. I still want to go in and edit this a little bit more. I'm going to turn my opacity back up, and I'm just going to kind of blend over these areas that it's added this like line. It's a little bit too rounded for me. I'm going to try to round that out. It looks okay. Okay. We'll go back to our in-paint mask, and I'm going to not regenerate this side piece anymore. Just going for the core fingers, and we'll decrease the denoising strength to 0.4. Really trying to keep it controlled here on just this one area. Well, there are a couple comments here that I need to answer. Control layers are still active even if they're hidden. Is that right? Yes. If you hide them using these eyes, that will turn off the visibility for the section, but keep them active. If you disable them using the small dot, they're disabled. So those are like two different control mechanisms. One is an individual layer control. The other is basically, I want to turn that layer group off from a visibility perspective. There is no way to turn off all of your control layers from a disable perspective. You actually have to explicitly disable each of those. This is just going to be visual. Extra fingers. What GPU are you using? This is a 4090. If you're using our hosted product, you have 48 gigabytes of VRAM. If you're running local consumer cards, typically you're going to look at 24 gigabytes, although it is rumored that the 5090 will be 32. And yeah, I think that's about all I have to say about that. So some other questions about models. So we'll accept this, because I think this looks okay. It looks okay. I would probably fiddle with it just a little bit more, but I want to kind of like keep moving on because we're 35 minutes in and we got one blacksmith. I think this is probably good enough for today's demonstration. Obviously, if we're going to finish this out, we do. Where would I touch up? I'd probably touch up this armor, this armor, get a little bit more detail, maybe get a little bit more detail in the hand. Go in and touch up the kind of the smithing apron. But overall, I think it's like a pretty decent piece of kind of character art. So I'll save the canvas out to the gallery. We will go to our images and open that up in the viewer. I double clicked there. You can also hover over and click the open in viewer. That'll just immediately open up in the viewer. I'm going to hit Alt to set it to compare mode. And then I'm going to move to compare our original to that character art. And you can see we got kind of cool looking, a little bit more painterly look out of that. Obviously could go in and do some more detailing if we wanted to, but it's a pretty good way to kind of get a little bit more of an artistic look to it. We like it. We like it. So we're going to do something a little bit more complicated now, and I have not tested or tried this out, and so it could be you all watching me flounder, but as we all know from past experiences in studio sessions, that's what you came here for. You like that. You like to see the struggle. I will struggle valiantly for you. So let's throw this guy on. And let me not forget to kind of call out the modelers here, because I do want to do that. We were looking at the blacksmith, and that blacksmith was Olmo Potams. And we will put his name in here. That his handle. He modeled that blacksmith that we were looking at. I believe that was the noble craftsman. So thank you to him for making that available in the Creative Commons on Sketch. We are now looking at a model by Pierre Antoine, and this is the Mountain King, which is a pretty cool looking render of, I think, a miniature that he painted, which is super cool, and he like 3D scanned it. So this is maybe a good example of one where the size is a little bit strange or off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fit the bounding box to the layers. I'm going to lock my aspect ratio, and I'm going to optimize that. The model that we're using wants to be generating at a little bit of a larger size. And so I can now right-click, transform, and hit fit to bounding box, and that'll fit that for us. Like I said, we're working on a button that will do that all for you in one go. We're just figuring out how to like expose that as an option and where that makes sense. So we'll get started with that. Like I did before, I'm going to convert this to a control layer. I'm going to set it to tile. I'm going to do another. This time, though, I might do scribble, only because there's a lot of little tiny details, and I think Canny could get... Canny gets a little bit squirrely when you have so many tiny details in it. It could be okay, but I'm going to see if line art looks a little bit better. I just have a feeling that it'll capture a lot more of that. Yeah, it just feels better when I look at this image. I'm less concerned for my sanity. So we'll apply that. We'll use that as a scribble. We'll bring this down again, kind of tapering off towards the ends. We'll do the same for tile, but I'm going to keep it a little bit strong because I do think we're going to need a lot of the control for the first iterations on this. And now I just have to figure out, like, what are we even looking at? How are we going to describe this to... how are we going to describe this to the model? Maybe it might be useful to use an IP adapter. So I'll go back to my gallery. I'm going to drag this in as a new global reference image, and we will use the full IP adapter method, but at a lower strength. We don't want to get too much of the style from it. If we use the full, we get a lot more of the semantic content of the image. It's going to basically say, here's the whole thing, but it's also going to be including the style. We want all of it, but we don't want that style to bleed through. So we've got to bring that down a little bit. What we can also do to give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room on the style is we can bring the end step down. What that'll do is it'll help with a lot of the core composition of the image. And then once it gets to the detailing phase where it's kind of finishing it out, it'll basically leave off that IP adapter. So we're going to give this a try. We're going to say a rock encrusted ogre of some sort, ogre, troll, beast creature. Large, bulky, muscles, chains. And I think we're going to get into the regional guidance here, because then we're going to need to. blue, purple hued skin, and small creatures. What are these things that are poking out of it? Small, it's like blue goblins fused to its body. This is a tough prompt. This is gonna be tough for it to understand. We're gonna really go for some regional guidance here. I'm gonna get liberal on the regional guidance. So I'm gonna do rocks, rock formations, like armor maybe, and we will start brushing that in where there's a lot of rock stuff so that it knows those are rocks. And then we're going to do a fist. And then we're going to do a mouth. And we're going to do a big rock jaw. With large rock teeth. And we'll do our chains. Try to capture all the areas where there's chains. This is a toughie. This is a toughie. And then we'll do our little like small blue goblins fused. I think if we turn off our controls, let's do this real quick. Let's duplicate this. Wait, no, you know what I'm gonna do? I just turn the transparency off here. So I believe that our small blue goblins need to be here. Maybe here. This is a tough one. This is a tough one. We're gonna be hoping that this understands what it's looking at. Let's give it a shot. Do the first generation. This is the first generation, no raster layers. This is our pure control generation. We're seeing what we're going to get here. Someone said, imagine trying to prompt for this without the control image. I think that is like truly the reason why having creative control is really ultimately necessary for any type of novel or creative work using AI, because trying to prompt for what's up here is way different than just being able to like show it what you mean. Here we go. British. It's going to be in the pudding here. Not too bad. Not too bad. Pretty solid start. It's a good place to begin at the very least. Obviously a lot of like tiny details that we're going to want to go in and tweak, but I'd say it's a pretty good start. Like it got the rough in for us, right? Of like a more painterly look of this creature. Here's where the fun begins. I am just going to get the regional guidance out of the way. I don't need to fiddle with that anymore. I've already done the work of putting in the prompts where they are. As I go around doing inpainting, when it's needed, it'll impact the generation, right? It's going to have that regional guidance. If I move the bounding box around, that regional guidance is just going to stick where it's at. So if I'm detailing out an area with his face, it's already got the rock jaw in there. If I'm detailing out this little guy over here, that's going to be there already. I don't need to worry about it. So I'm going to bring my bounding box around and kind of do some stuff, but I'm going to turn my regional guidance off. I'll probably hide the control layers as well because I don't need to see them, but I can still get the controls and kind of fiddle with those because they're still influencing the generation. I will take this out. Yeah, I will take that out. and then we'll get started here. Somebody said, I'd be curious to see techniques to influence color. If we compare our initial image with this, we can see that there's like a pretty significant color difference, or at least it shows that it's gotten a little bit more purple. I think this is a function of the tile control net, as far as I can tell. It kind of tends towards this magenta color, and that may just be a function of the tile control net. There are a couple techniques we can use. We will try those momentarily. I'll turn that transparency back on. Trying to think of how I want to try changing the color a little bit. We can first worry about detailing, and then we'll go to color. We'll do details first, and then we'll do color. So I'm going to turn off our control layers. I'm going to come in, and I want to get some of these areas a little bit more fleshed out. So I'm going to inpaint these chains and the head, and we'll turn the denoising strength up to like 0.6. Did have some questions here. Somebody asked about when UV textures are mapped correctly, could Invoke understand the concept of unwrapped UVs when prompting? Yeah, a couple of people have mentioned that you'd probably want a model trained to detect UV maps. Vic or Blessed Coolant says an alternative that kind of works is if you have a normal map or an AO generated from the high res, you can use that to generate additional maps like Canny to guide the layout, and then you can draw a rough color map and let the model refine that up. All works. So we're coming in and getting some more detail, similar to how we've seen this before. I'm going to loosen up the tile and scribble. And we'll do face of a rock encrusted ochre, and we'll try another denoising pass. Just trying to get a little bit more detail here. Cool. It's picking up a little bit more of those chains. Those chains look better. Continue to fix those up. Maybe we'll do this like foot area over here. And I'll turn the denoising strength up pretty high there. Just regenerating that piece. Okay, we like that. Looks good. Chains look better. Let's go over here and try to get this little guy. So we're going to change this here. We are a small blue goblin fused to a rock formation. We'll turn this out and just kind of regenerate that piece there. Now our tile is still controlling this. We could turn that up if we think we need to, but we'll see if we do. It's definitely better than what it was before, so I'll accept it. I'm going to turn up our tile and see if the original image can kind of get a little bit more of the detail in there. Let's see, do we like that better? No, I think I like the original one that we did. So I'll bring this tile back down and we'll continue to move around here. I'm just going to Control Z in the positive prompt to get back to my old prompt here. And that saves me a little bit of time. And I'll go in and kind of do the top of this rock encrusted ogre creature. Get this neck thing, and we'll get this little blue goblin guy. Yeah, so this is actually part of the original image. Somebody called out there's a weird little creature. That is intended. Part of this is having that little friend. This is actually supposed to be a face, and we're going to have to get some work there to do that. But now we've got a much kind of cleaner rock formation looking painting up here. We will do some more inpainting on this set of chains and that set of chains there. Maybe that object up there in the corner. So we're just kind of going in and getting some of these details in. And this really just gives us a nice like base of this. As far as colors go and recoloring, we can do a couple of tricks to kind of like recolor things, but we might lose some detail if we do. We'll try doing that in a second here. I'm going to do a quick face here. We turn our tile control net to full transparency and turn this off. I guess you can't really see his face in the original. It's supposed to be like a little guy, I think. Little face coming out of that piece there. It's a little bit hard to see, though. We're going to try it. We're going to try to get it. But what we may do is we may turn down the tile strength here. And turn off the control layer again. And then we are going to go in and select that guy. Make sure we got a regional guidance there. Yeah, we do. Let's see. I think I'm going to delete that one out. I'm going to add a new one here. Face of a goblin. How to describe this. Trying to think of like, is there a picture we can show it that shows a face coming out of the like, let's see, I got an idea. This is going to be a little funny. This is going to be a little funny. There's like this scene from Ace Ventura. He's like coming out the rhino. We're going to use that. We're going to use that as a reference image here. I know this is going to be a little crazy, but we're just kind of using, we're trying to give it like, let me show you what I mean. So we got Ace Ventura coming out of the rhino, and we're going to use that as a reference image here. And we are going to drop that in. And composition only, certainly not style. And maybe it'll understand that. Glimmer is probably going to give me some shade here for giving him the this content. All right, Ace Ventura Pet Detective. Okay, we're going in and we're regenerating that piece. I think the most important thing to take away here is if you can visualize it and you have an example that you can use, a reference image can kind of like help you make that happen a little bit. And we're going to use that for this particular area. You know, it's okay. I think it kind of tried to make this like a little bit more, it's definitely like more detailed, but it's just not quite like there as far as what we want. So let's see, we're going to do maybe change our prompt. A small blue goblin fused to a creature, blue-purple hued skin. How to describe this in words? Like horror. Conjoined. Okay, that's good. Since people are throwing out terms here, conjoined. That's good. And we're going to maybe just take out, I think I did a little bit too large of a region for face. And we're going to do and there, face out there, and then just like maybe what I'm going to do is a negative prompt for face. I'm going to do the negative prompt around that region. I'll make that part green so that we can see it a little bit better. So we got face, hand, not face. And we're going to regenerate that. Make our mask a little bit brighter here. Cool. All right. To turn off my regional guidance. Just so I can focus on this area here. And we'll regenerate that guy. Does someone said, do you have to delete the regional guidance and create a new one, or would it be sufficient to rewrite the prompt? You could rewrite the prompt. You could delete it. You can clear it and then redraw it. It doesn't really make a difference. It's kind of however you want to do it. In that case, I think I had like some regional guidance that was there and somewhere else. And so I just kind of wanted to start fresh. That way we could kind of like work from there. Still not quite there. This one's going to be a little tough one. Let's see if we look at our controls, what we've got there. Turn off Inpaint mask. Turn off tile real quick. It's kind of doing a little bit of a risk here, but I'm going to decrease the instep. So it's going to draw some inspiration from the original during the initial steps, but then it's going to get real free. And this will look different than our original sketch or initial analysis with the line art. But it might solve this problem for us, or it might get too far outside. It's kind of cool, but it's not really what we're looking for there. Kind of neat though, but I don't think that's what we're going for. How do I want to solve this problem? Oh man, I'm noticing that we're like at time and I still have so much I want to do here. Can I go over? Can I do like another 3 minutes? Okay, yeah. I someone said I'm allowed to go over. Okay, I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna do this a little bit longer because I really want to get this one like face in. So let's see. This is what it was before. This is where it's at now. We've kind of got this like face coming out of it. It is cool. It's just not, it's not exactly what I'm going for. Maybe what I want to do is I just want to come down to a smaller region. Maybe that's like the answer here is instead of focusing on as big a region as I was doing, we'll just do a smaller region and I'll try to get the details in at a like closer composition. Give that a shot. Oh, I see what it's doing here. It's trying to make that a nose and a mouth and the eyes. So it's not controlling using our scribble. Okay. Now I've got an idea. All right, we're going to turn off the transparency here. I'm going to see what I've got from our sketch, and I am going to fix this sketch so that it's really clear what we're looking at. So let's do this. It's going to be too big. Just set up all my like hotkeys and stuff on my drawing tablet over here. Do it to black real quick. Okay, so I'm blacking that out, and then I'm going to draw in a mouth and really firmly draw the outline of this head here. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. What we're going to do, we're going to try to give it that. Then we will probably go in and clean up some of these outside shapes so that it knows exactly what I'm going for here. So it's got that face. Turn the transparency back on. Kind of maps to that. And paint back on, and we'll go for it. That may also help if we went in and like did some coloring underneath so that like it had a little bit of stuff to work off of, but this will work for us. Now we've got our like head coming out of it. It's a little bit goblin-y because of our prompt. So I might do a little bit lower denoising strength and see if that fixes it, makes it a little bit more like what we had before. Oh, that's kind of goblin-y coming out the other way. Okay. Let's see. I do like that little goblin, though. He's kind of crazy. It's crazy. That is it right there. It's got like a weird double chin. We're going to fix that. I guess I drew that double chin. I didn't even realize I drew that double chin, but I did. We're going to delete that part of the double chin out of the scribble. And then we will regenerate that and hope it goes away. It's a little bit too much of a double chin for me. Very, very big double chin. I love it. Look, we got the little guy in there, a little freaky guy. And we'll take off our control layer and just kind of take a look back at this. Okay, cool. So we got this into a much more painterly look. Let's merge our layers, save this, and then compare. And I think the one thing that we still didn't touch on as much is going to be our color, right? So we got a little bit of a color drift here. It became a lot more, so like magenta-y-ish. What I think I'd probably find the easiest to do is pop this into something like a Photoshop and use a layer to just apply the color down. Probably the easiest thing to do. Obviously, we could go in and regenerate and try to like match the color and stuff like that. But really, at the end of the day, I think what we're trying to see is just that the texture that we've gotten in from this is maintained. So I'm going to copy this. And don't you worry, I'll share my screen over here in Photoshop here momentarily. just go through the whole workflow. We're going to do the whole thing. I'm right-clicking, copying the images, and pasting these as layers in Photoshop. And let's see here. It's probably going to get a little dicey here on the recording. All right, we're going to try it. We're going to try to make this work. So stop streaming. Put this over into Photoshop. Hopefully everyone can see that. And then I will do the same thing for our recording so that we can see what's going on. Maybe. No, it does not like that. Well, recording is not going to have our Photoshop process. I'll try to like re-record this after the fact from a video perspective so we can have that to cut in. We'll just get this done for the stream for now. But we're going to take this layer. We're going to transform it to fit the whole thing. And we are going to set this to color. And then maybe take the opacity down a little bit. And that will kind of influence our color and give us something to work off while still maintaining that kind of like vibe of the painting that we did. Yeah, so that's kind of what I would do. It's very easy to move between Invoke and an editing tool, whether you're using Affinity or Photoshop. If I wanted to take this back and do some work, Control A. So Control A to select everything. You go up to Edit, Copy Merged, or Shift Control C, and then we'll go back to Invoke, and I'll switch my screen again. And here we go. Back here, I am just going to Control V, that merged in, and I can add that as a new raster layer. So now I've got my kind of recolored one that has our little freaky guy, and I can come back in and continue to iterate on this if I want to. So really easy to move back and forth between Photoshop and Invoke. You can just right click a layer, pop it out. You can merge layers together, pop it out. You can merge all the layers on the Photoshop side using Shift Control C and paste those into Invoke. It's really easy to move back and forth. And this is really where you can get into a really nice workflow of go and kind of edit, touch up, and do some brushing inside of Photoshop where you've got all of your brushes and anything else that you've been using, and then come back to Invoke when you're really wanting to do a lot more of that kind of iterative editing with AI. So with that, knowing that we're 10 minutes over, we'll go ahead and call it. But thank you all for sticking with us for a little bit, and we will see you at the next one. Take care, everybody.